number of years ago, when I was the CFO of a startup, I worked with a COO named Marcus. Marcus and I disagreed about everything. He focused on the details, I focused on the big picture. We made a decision. I wanted to involve other people. He wanted to make a decision and go. We even had very different communication styles. Marcus would get all up in my face when we talked, whereas I am a personal space kind of girl. So I did what any normal person would do under these circumstances. Talked about Marcus behind his back to all my peers. I wanted them to know how right I was and how wrong he was. One day, I was talking to the head of engineering, complaining about Marcus, as I did, and he turned to me and said, "You know, he's not annoying you on purpose. He's not annoying you on purpose." This was a revelation. Fast forward 20 years, and I coach executives, and I advise companies on human capital. I'm an expert on how people handle disagreement. It is not pretty. People disagree on priorities, on points of view, and on the way to work together. And if you bring it up, no matter how diplomatically, you're met with defensiveness, explosiveness, and the silent treatment. So mostly, you don't bring it up. People stay silent. They wave and smile. They work around you. Then they talk about you behind their back like I did with Marcus. We seem to have no capacity to tolerate disagreement. Now, confession time. As an executive coach, I worry that I am part of the problem. I coach my clients to be agreeable. Common ground is the gateway to likability. And likability is the key to getting what you want in the workplace. So be agreeable is good advice when you're trying to get a raise or have people work on your project when they don't have to. We all know why we're hardwired to work together. Back in the caveman days, if you kicked up too much of a fuss, you'd get tossed out and be left to be dinner for some creature. So be agreeable and fitting in was a matter of life or death. But at this moment, this natural inclination has turned against us. We seem to have retreated into our own private echo chambers where we hear our own opinions mirrored to us over and over again. When you do encounter disagreement, the conversation devolves quickly into personal attacks, cancel culture, or violence. We have to increase our disagreement quotient, the ability to tolerate differences so that we can have the nuanced and complex conversations that we need to solve the challenges that face us today. Today, I'm going to share 3 strategies to help you increase your disagreement quotient. Not to help you convince other people of your point of view. That is a different talk. Just to help you deal with people who think differently from you. And I hope that I'm going to inspire you and empower you to help you seek out people who are different from you to have those conversations. So the first strategy is to fight the urge to fight or flight. When someone disagrees with you, you feel it physically. When you get really fired up, the cortisol and adrenaline course through your body, triggering the classic fight or flight response. This happens immediately, unconsciously, and this is why you can jump out of the way of an oncoming car automatically. It's also why you wrote that email in all caps that you probably shouldn't have sent. Now, maybe there are some enlightened people out there who can always think before they speak, but I'll be honest, I am not one of them. And I suspect there are some of you who are in my camp as well. So you have to practice. The best way to practice is to put yourself in harm's way, to actually put yourself in the experience of disagreement. Get all riled up and then practice calming yourself down. You can do that by taking deep breaths, physically walking away, or finding a mantra like nothing's wrong or stay calm that will help you stay present. One of my clients, a startup founder named Jesse, got defensive and even hostile when his employees would disagree with him. The impact was they checked out. Why bother, they thought, and honestly, I don't blame them. So Jesse realized he had to increase his disagreement quotient. This is what he did. He asked all of his employees to bring into his meetings issues and topics that they knew he would disagree with. He just had to sit there and calm himself down. He tried to take deep breaths, but that felt kind of weird to him. So he ended up having a mantra saying nothing's wrong, told himself over and over to help him stay centered and listen. As his employees got used to the new non-reactive Jesse, they began telling him more. He learned a lot. And the company began to have better, more constructive meetings and got to better decisions. Not for nothing, Jesse brought this new behavior into his interactions with his wife. They dramatically improved their relationship. I don't charge extra for marriage counseling, by the way. The second strategy is to assume positive intent. Now, here I have to remind you of the psychological principle of the fundamental attribution error. What that means is we tend to ascribe negative intent to someone else, but positive intent to ourselves. So like if someone's late for a meeting, you assume they're lazy or they don't care. But if you're late to a meeting, you know that you had a really important phone call. They ought to give you a medal for showing up at all. So the way to overcome this natural human bias is to ask yourself one simple question. Why would a well-meaning, intelligent person act this way? Now, I am not saying that you have to assume they really are a well-meaning, intelligent person. That is entirely optional. But when you frame it that way, it helps you neutralize and you can understand where they're coming from better. So back to Marcus, the COO when I was a CFO. I decided to ask myself, why would a well-meaning, intelligent person act this way? Well, when I framed it that way, a lot of explanations came up. I knew that Marcus wanted to do a good job, and details matter. Maybe that's why he was obsessed with them. Or maybe this was his own stress response. When I searched for a more generous explanation, something really interesting happened. I stopped being annoyed. I started listening. And Marcus and I, who disagreed on everything, began to find common ground and have much more constructive discussions. Unexpectedly, we actually became very good friends. Now, the third strategy, and frankly my favorite, is to relish being wrong. A few years ago, I discovered something that blew my mind. You can't convince people with strong opinions to change their minds. And if you try, they just dig in harder. So I thought I might find that depressing, but actually I found it liberating because it frees you up. You can frame arguments, you can frame the way to win arguments as learning rather than winning. The more you learn, the more you win. A few months ago, I was talking to my friend Christy about a controversial health topic. The conversation got really heated, and then I thought, oh, I could just relish being wrong. So I said, Christy, maybe I'm wrong. Tell me your point of view. She shared with me all the research she had done on this topic. And then she opened up, and she shared about her fears and concerns. I just listened. At the end of the conversation, I learned more about the topic, and more importantly, about my friend Christy. I learned about where she was really coming from on the inside, and we got closer. I didn't convince her, but we laid the groundwork for having better conversations in the future. Increasing your disagreement quotient is not a magic wand that's going to solve all your issues at work. It's also not by itself going to solve all the world's challenges, no. But what it will do is allow you to be in the presence of people who have different points of view, and discussing them together will help us all create a pathway to the challenges that we face that we must solve today. So when you find yourself in a moment of disagreement, remember these three concepts. Fight the urge to fight or flight. Remember, nothing's wrong. Assume positive intent. Ask yourself, why would a well-meaning, intelligent person act this way? And relish being wrong. Remember that learning is winning. Thank you.